Here in Pennsylvania, we are home to Leap the Dips, the world's oldest operating roller coaster, and in proxy, the country's oldest operating wooden coaster. But did you know in neighboring Ohio is the country's oldest continually operating steel roller coaster? Let's elaborate. Now, Memphis Kiddie Park is located in Brooklyn, Ohio, and is home to a small assortment of rides, several of which are aimed at a younger demographic. It is owned by Russ Wintner and the Wintner family, and has been a staple of the Cleveland area since 1952. Many of the rides featured at Memphis Kiddie Park are from the Allen Herschel Company, 3 of which adults can ride comfortably, those being the narrow gauge miniature railroad, the classic carousel, and the Little Dipper roller coaster, the country's oldest continually operating steel roller coaster. I had originally considered going to Memphis Kiddie Park in 2020, but due to the pandemic, the park didn't open. So upon going in 2021, I had my reservations. I was afraid that I would arrive and it would be nearly dead. So much to my surprise and my delight, I turned the corner, and there is Memphis Kiddie Park with a full parking lot. It honestly was the most packed I'd seen one of these parks on any of my trips. So, despite the prospect of longer waits for the rides I intended to ride, knowing that the park was bustling with activity brought joy to my heart. As with several of the parks in this series, Memphis Kiddie Park was free admission. It is pay per ride, there is no wristband option, but the tickets are fairly priced. I believe they're only like $2.50 per ticket. So I purchased my tickets, enough to ride each of the 3 adult rides once, and then 2 extra in case I wanted re-rides. And I head over to the Little Dipper. And the Little Dipper, without a doubt, had the longest line of the day. So I get to the front of the line, and the ride-off looks at me, and he smirks, and he says, "And one big kid, come on down to the front car." And I give him a look of surprise, and he's like, "Yeah, you didn't expect that, did you?" Well, basically, he front-loaded the train so it would go faster, so it wouldn't valley out. So I get in, and I have to cross my legs because it is a kid's coaster. And then I ride the Little Dipper. And let me tell you, of all of the Allen Herschel Little Dippers I've ridden, this one was perhaps the best maintained of all of them. So immaculately smooth, so fast, it even had some pops of airtime, albeit mild pops. So I get back to the station, the goofiest grin on my face, and the ride-op looks at me and says, "That'll wake you up better than a cup of coffee." And I agree. So I head on over to the carousel. It's one of those classic 50s era carousels. And as I'm waiting in line, I'm looking and I'm noticing each of the horses is personalized. Each of them is painted in vibrant colors and has its own name, which I thought was neat that it had such a personal touch to it. And I rode the carousel. It was a fun ride. But I get off and I tell the ride-op, and this is logic I stand by. I tell him, "Hey, you're never too old for a carousel." And he smiled at me and said, "Have a good day." But that is so true. As of this recording, I'm going on 35, and I'm still this little kid at heart whenever I see one of those carousels in an amusement park. So then I get in line for the train. And as I'm waiting in line, I'm talking with the man in front of me. Has to be in his late 50s or even early 60s. And I'm talking, and he's telling me how Memphis Kiddie Park has been a staple of his life and his family for generations. He's there with his grandkids, and he tells me how much he remembered riding these rides. And that, I felt that. Because growing up, I'd go to places like Conneaut Lake Park, I'd go to Idlewild, and those childhood memories grow with you every time you revisit one of your favorite amusement parks. It's one of the few instances where you can, in fact, relive your childhood. And this gentleman in front of me was doing just that, making new memories while building off of older ones. So I finally get to the front of the line, and I'm next to ride the train, and I'm looking, and I knew nearly nothing about it going in. And this is where my jaw just dropped straight to the ground. It was an Alan Herschel Iron Horse, and it was kept in pristine, immaculate condition. Now, a bit of a side note, many amusement parks feature the standard C.P. Huntington narrow gauge railroad. The only other Alan Herschel Iron Horse I'd ever ridden, that I even knew of, was at Conneaut Lake Park, and that since has gone defunct. So for me to see another Iron Horse, that was the sleeper hit of the day. And I'm taking pictures, and I'm just aghast. And I get to my seat, I get to the back of the train, and the conductor comes over to me and says, "Hey, you a train enthusiast?" And I freeze, I'm speechless. And he said, "I noticed you were taking pictures." And then I say, "No, I'm an amusement park enthusiast, but I noticed it was an Alan Herschel." And he tells me, "Oh, this isn't the original train. They got this in '56. I don't know what the original was, but this has been operating at the park ever since." So the train ride winds its course around the vicinity of the park itself. And what's memorable about the train to me is the moment when you pass the miniature golf course and it has some small theming along the way. It's nothing major, it's nothing groundbreaking, but it's such a nice little touch that gives the park all the more charm to it. It should also be noted how efficient the maintenance staff is at Memphis Kiddie Park. In the time it took to wait in line for the Little Dipper to ride it, they had disassembled and then reassembled the small Alan Herschel rocket ride adjacent to the coaster. Now, memory escapes me if it was operating that day, but for them to be that quick in the space of about a half an hour, that's impressive. Every staff member that I encountered was so personable, so approachable, so kind. Every ride was in immaculate condition. It looked like it was straight off the show floor. And these are rides that opened up with the park back in 1952, some of them. And that kind of care speaks volumes to how much pride the staff take in their park. If you're looking for the fastest and tallest roller coaster, you won't find it here. But if you're looking for a great atmosphere and the chance to ride the oldest operating steel coaster in the country, you will not be disappointed.